Today we're going to continue talking about the French and Indian War. We kind of started talking about it a little bit last time, where we said that they were winning the Ohio Territory, which was the land that's not Ohio today, but the opening to like Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, Wisconsin, pretty much anything west or east rather of the Mississippi. And England owned it, France owned it, and England wanted it, and the Native Americans had to choose sides, even though they didn't want to. But eventually, the war was obvious, so they had to choose. And there were reasons why they would choose with both sides. Reasons for siding with France was they were hunters and fur traders like the Indians. They kind of did the same thing. Um, they would make trades with them. They would hunt. They would do. They just have very similar interests in what they were doing. They were nice to them. They did not clear their land for farming. They may have moved them around a little bit, but they weren't nearly as brutal with their tactics as getting rid of the natives. Um, so they were just nicer to or the French. And lastly, they a lot of the French men married the Indian women, so their relations were better. They just simply got along better than the Indians did with the British, the English. And I'm going to say British and English. Britain is the island, England's the country, but it's kind of all the same with a lot of what we're going to talk about. So if I say Britain, I mean England too. I use them interchangeably, probably a little bit too much. Um, so although they did not clear their land as much, the English, and they ignored their rights, they did not charge as much for trade. So when they would trade with them, they gave them better deals. So it's kind of like, if you have a company that may not do as good of practices as far as like having their workers work in poor conditions and that kind of thing, but the prices are cheaper, you may still go shop there. And that's kind of what England was hoping for. The other thing about England was, well, that's really about it. That was their main thing. Eventually, they both found allies, and an ally is someone that is on your side during conflict. And how this happened was, um, the French got the Algonquin Indians and the Huron Indians. They liked the French better, and they sided with them. England got the Iroquois Indians, but the main reason they got the Iroquois really had nothing to do with trade and that kind of thing. It was more that they got along or didn't get along with the Algonquins. So if the Algonquins went one way, the Iroquois were going to go another way. So they did not stay on the same side. They split apart. So um, you've got the French with the Algonquins and the Hurons, and England with the Iroquois getting ready to fight each other. And that's what started out. In 1754, France and England fought over the Ohio Territory. This was not the first time France and England got in a fight. Excuse me, I'm tired. Got in a fight in the New World. But it is the first time it is the worst time that they got in the war. It was actually the fourth time they had fought. So it was a pretty big deal, and things got pretty bad. Well, England sent this young man to protect their some of their area from the French, and his name was George Washington. You may have heard of him before. And he went to a place in current day Pennsylvania where three rivers meet: the Allegheny, the Ohio, and the Monongahela. And he went to protect it from France. But when he got there, he saw that France had already um, started setting up camp, and France were already there. So they kind of started mouthing off and talking about each other's mamas and stuff like that. And oh, what's going on here? And fighting broke out. And when the fighting broke out, France won the battle. They had way too many more men than England did. So Washington and his men kind of saw, hey, we're outnumbered here. We're in trouble here. They're bigger than us and better than us, so we need to retreat. So France retreated, and or excuse me, England retreated. Well, France named this land Fort Duquesne, and it was the opening to the Ohio Territory. If you can get Fort Duquesne, you can get, if England can get Fort Duquesne, they're going to just go right on through and get the Ohio Territory. So this is a very, very, very important piece of land for the French to hold on to. But we're going to stop there, and we're actually going to fight the battle tomorrow and go from there. So that is all the notes.